Hi, my name is Vijay Bandaru. I'm a certified Scrum trainer, certified team coach, and certified enterprise coach from Scrum Alliance. I conduct Scrum related trainings, workshops, and help organizations in their agile transformation. I create these videos to help your understanding of Scrum better, and you can use these concepts effectively. So, in this video, I'm going to cover different process types. So basically, different product problems need different process types, and different processes will have different characteristics. So the agenda for this video is what is a process, what are different process types, and what's the difference between waterfall and agile, which can be used in which scenario. That's about the brief. What is a process? A process can be simply termed as a way of working or an approach to solve a problem. So let's take two examples here. The first problem statement is make a coffee from a vending machine. And the second one is make the best ever coffee in the world. So these are two different problems which has two different characteristics. So because these are two different type of problems, obviously we need to tackle them using different types of processes. So first let's understand what are the characteristics of these two problem statements. So if you look at it, the left side problem has these characteristics: simple, predictable, static. And the right hand side problem has these characteristics: complex, unpredictable, and adaptive. So let's analyze them. Why did we choose simple for the left side problem? Because everything is known upfront related to the problem and related to the solution. If you have watched my previous video, which I have created problem types: simple, complicated, complex, and chaotic, you will know this. Otherwise, you can watch that. I'm going to give the video link of that video in the comment section. So there are four different types of problems. Simple problem means known knowns. Everything is known upfront related to the product as well as solution. Predictable, because the result can be upfront predictable. Before you get the coffee into the cup, you already know that if you press the button C, you will get a cappuccino coffee. So even if you press 20, 30 times the same button, the same coffee will you get. So that means result can be upfront predictable. The reason why we have selected static for the left side problem is once you start getting the coffee, you can't change it. For example, you put the cup and you press the button E. Espresso coffee is getting into the cup. While the coffee is dropping into the cup, let's say you changed your mind. No, I don't want espresso, I want to get cappuccino. If you press the button C, the coffee doesn't become cappuccino. It will still be espresso, it will fill the previous cup, and if you don't want, you have to throw it away and put a new cup and then press the button C. So that is why static. So these kind of problems where everything about the problem and solution are crystal clear, and the customer and the people who are solving the problem are able to visualize the result. That means predictable, and nothing is going to change in between. Those kind of problems will be solved using something called as defined process, like waterfall. So how do they work? They work based on a plan. In general, in waterfall way of working, you ask the customer how many coffees you want. Let's say customer said, I want 50 coffees, out of which 10 or espresso, 15 or latte, remaining 25 or cappuccino. So you get to know all the requirements upfront. You know how to use the machine. And then you can make an end-to-end plan. So execute the plan. But if you look at it, do you think the same approach, plan-driven approach, can be used for the right side problem? Not really, because the characteristics of the right side problem are entirely different. So that is why we need a different type of process than defined process. So what is that? We call it as empirical process. What's the meaning of empirical? So empiricism means experimental. So the definition of empiricism is knowledge comes from experience and the decisions are made based on what is observed. That means in order to solve a complex problem where unknown is more than known, we take a shorter experiments. So each such experiment will give you some knowledge. That knowledge will help you to decide what is the next best right action towards solving the problem. So that's called empiricism. So empirical process comes with three legs. The first leg of empirical process is called as transparency. That means creating shared understanding. When you're trying to solve a complex problem where unknown is more than known, you cannot go with the plan-driven approach. So whatever processes, tools, techniques, templates, structures you are using, they all should create same understanding called shared understanding within the people who are trying to solve the problem. The second leg is called as inspection. That means at regular intervals, you will check for any abnormal or unacceptable variances. The moment you identify something is not really going well, you want to adapt it. That means go for a course correction. So that is called as adaptation. So when you are trying to solve a complex problem using the empirical approach, all these three legs are equally important because transparency helps you to identify what has to be inspected. Inspection helps you to identify what has to be adapted. So let's take a simple example. I want to go from a place called A to a place called B. Imagine in the past I traveled between A to B multiple times. So I know everything between A and B, like weather conditions, transportation methods, and best season to visit, hospitals, fuel stations, restaurants, everything I know because I traveled multiple times. So obviously it is a simple problem. Imagine I want to go once again from A to B next month. Because everything I know, I can take defined process like Waterfall. So I can also make an end-to-end plan for my entire travel upfront because it is a simple problem. Everything is known upfront. Let's take a different problem. I want to go from a place called A to a place called B. In this case, imagine I just know the name of the place. I don't know anything else. I know that there is a place called B. I want to go from A to B. Because I just know the name of the place, nothing else, obviously it is a complex problem. So I can't use a waterfall approach and I can't make a end-to-end plan upfront for my entire travel. Then how do I tackle? In one direction, I will travel some distance and ask feedback. I'll check with the people. Hey, is this the way to go to B? Answer is no, because if I travel in the same path, I'll go somewhere else. Based on the feedback, I'll change my direction. Again, I'll travel for some distance and ask for feedback. Again, the answer is no. If you go like that in the same direction, you'll go somewhere. Based on that feedback, again, I will change the direction. After some time, again, I'll change the direction. Again, I'll change the direction. Like that, throughout the journey, if you have observed, we have used something called as empirical approach. And the three legs of empirical approach are transparency, which is to create shared understanding for all the people involved. Inspection, which is nothing but at regular interval check for any abnormal or unacceptable variances. And the third leg is adaptation. That means making the course correction. So in Scrum terminology, this line is called as sprint, a short experiment. Sprint is a shorter time box. Every sprint, the first day starts with planning. We call it as sprint planning. Keeping the overall product goal, which in this case is B, they will identify a small sprint goal to be achieved by the end of the sprint. In order to do that, they will select some items from the product backlog into the sprint backlog to be implemented to achieve the sprint goal. And they try to execute these items throughout the sprint. And every day during the sprint, they'll have something called as daily Scrum, which is a daily inspect and adapt opportunity to see whether we are in right direction or not, whether the progress we are making is in line with the sprint goal or not. So daily inspection and adaptation. On the last day of the sprint, there are two events, sprint review and sprint retrospective. The purpose of sprint review is to get the product inspection done. That means verify the product and check whether we are in right direction from the product point of view or not. The purpose of retrospective is to check the people, processes, tools, techniques. Are these going in right direction or not? So that means this is a process inspection, people and process related inspection. That knowledge gives you some information. Based on that, the next sprint can be planned accordingly. So that is what we discussed in the previous screen. Empiricism means knowledge comes from experience and the decisions are made based on what is observed. At the end of every sprint, the Scrum team creates a small, useful and valuable increment, and they showcase to the stakeholders. Based on their feedback, they try to improve the increment further. Again, they showcase the feedback and they try to improve the increment further every sprint. That means this is what is called as creating adaptive solutions for complex problems. If you remember the Scrum definition, Scrum is a lightweight framework which helps individual teams, organizations generate value through adaptive solutions for complex problems. Because the nature of complex problem is unknown is more than known, you can't go with a fixed solution or a stringent or rigid solution. It has to be always adaptive. So Scrum helps you to achieve that by using these shorter sprints. What is the fundamental approach difference between Waterfall way of working and Scrum way of working? In Waterfall, we usually get the entire scope from the customer at the beginning itself, which is always fixed. Now, keeping that into consideration, the team will estimate two things. The time required to implement the scope, which is called a schedule, and the cost required to implement the scope, which is called as budget. Now, keeping all these three things, scope, time, cost, they make an end-to-end project plan, which is called as Gantt chart. And the focus is to execute the plan. So we can call this as plan-driven approach, because our focus is based on the plan. So if you execute all the projects or products, or you solve the problem, every problem using Waterfall, there will be some fundamental challenges. These are the fundamental challenges if you try to do everything using Waterfall. Output focus, more waste, less flexible, less transparent, poor customer involvement, delayed value delivery, and high cost of change. Now, how does it solve in the Agile? So in Agile, we exactly do opposite. We'll try to keep two things fixed at the beginning: time and cost. For example, let's imagine you are building a mobile application for a bank to help their customers and users to make their banking transactions easier, faster, reliable, accurate, whatever. So before you start the work, you talk to the customer, the bank people understand, and then ask them how much time you have in your mind for this mobile application. Let's say they said 8 months, okay? And how much cost you have in mind? Let's say they have told you $50,000. I have $50,000 for this. Then you both sit together and create a backlog of the requirements for that mobile banking application. The requirements are prioritized in such a way that items that are very important, valuable, urgent, critical, important will be always kept in the top of the backlog. Items important but not immediately urgent will be in the middle of the backlog. Items that are not important, not urgent, not valuable will be pushed always to the bottom. So this is how the product backlog is prioritized. And with the help of customer, you agree for a small time box, let's say 1 month, and understand the priorities, and based on the priority, you will pull some of these items into that 1 month. And then by the end of that 1 month, you will create a small increment. Increment is nothing but a small set of features which will create value to the customer. And you showcase that into the customers, and based on the feedback, you will allow them to change the completed things or upcoming things, provided that change will help them to improve the product value. At the same time, you check with them. Initially, we agreed 8 months time for building this mobile application. So we completed the first month. Do you have time? The typical answer from the customer is, yes, we still have time. At the same time, you check with them. For the first month of work, we have spent around $7,000. And I remember you told initially $50,000 are kept aside as a budget for this product. And do you still have money? So the answer from customer side is, yes, we still have around $40 plus $1,000. We can. Now, you ask them a very important question. Do you believe implementing any of these remaining items in the product backlog? Do you think they will improve the product value? If the answer from customer is yes, we believe they improve the value of the product, then you go with the next month. Again, you check the topmost few items and you try to create the increment. That means in this approach, the scope is managed in such a way that within the agreed time and cost, you may be able to deliver these many highest valuable, important, critical, urgent items, or these many, or more than what you both could envisage in the beginning. That means the scope is managed in this approach based on value to the customer. So obviously we can call this approach as called as value-driven development. And if you see the results of this approach, comparing to the waterfall way of working, obviously this is outcome focus, less waste, more flexible, and continuous customer involvement, incremental value delivery to customer. Every month you are giving some features, important, valuable, urgent, and less cost of change. So using this approach, you can easily define for what type of problem you can use which type of process. For example, if the problem is simple, where everything is known, crystal clear about the problem and the solution, and the customer and the team solving the problem can easily visualize the result upfront, that is predictable, and no requirement is going to change in between, then go for waterfall. But if the answer for these questions is no, for example, it is complex, unknown is more than known, and unpredictable, and adaptive, that means things can change over a period of time, then go for empirical approach like Scrum. So I hope this video will help you to make a decision wisely where you can use waterfall and where you can use Scrum. If you have liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We create informative videos related to Scrum and Agile. And if you want to contact us, this is our contact information. Thank you so much.